Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that. A wonderful welcome. It's blown my cover a bit tonight because my wife's always thought I was a travelling salesman, really, but tonight's rather given the game away. This is very special. I was brought up in a time when sporting personalities, men and women did not receive honours, prizes, OBEs, CBEs, all that sort of thing, which is quite commonplace now. If memory serves me right, I think a couple of West Indian cricketers were the first ones to be knighted, and a gentleman who was a football referee was the first one to be knighted for services to football. So when I receive a special award like this, excuse me, I get quite emotional because I've never won anything in my life, really. Well, a few bits and pieces. But it tells me two things for certain. One, that I've done a few things in my professional career that have worked out nicely, and the people, some, not all, have enjoyed my efforts. And the other, I can imagine people sitting around a table somewhere saying, you know, that old bugger's still around, we ought to give him a prize. So I like the thought of the first one being the cause of this jollity. I've been doing a tour of the halls in Britain. I've finished about 9-10 months ago now, and I did 110 shows going on my own, sitting on a chair in the middle of the stage and just waffling away for 45 minutes. And then the audience would go and have fizzy drinks, and I'd come back and have an action with them, questions from the floor. And it worked out very well, and I got to thinking a lot about the game of golf and my family, who've been involved in the sport for over 100 years. And I did a bit of detective work because my father was quite getting on a bit when he had me. He was 40 years of age when I was born. Mother, I think, was about 42. She was a very rare woman having a baby over 40 years of age a few years ago. And I did some detective work and discovered he was one of half a dozen brothers, born on the outskirts of Sheffield. And his father had a small holding in 5 or 6 acres where they grew things and plants and bushes. And they used to do gardening and look after the local toffs, bits and pieces garden. And father's brothers, 2 of them played cricket at a very high level. Not county cricket, but what they call league cricket, which is just a little whisker below in the Sheffield area. They still play league cricket today in the north of England to a very high standard. And his brothers showed my father how to play. And he was developing into a very good left-arm spin bowler, sort of number 8 batsman, good eye, whack the ball, get lots of runs off about 5 or 6 balls. But he also had gone down to a golf course called Alliss, just down the road from where they lived, or a couple of miles, and started caddying when he was about 10 or 11. And I can only assume that some of the old boys, they gave him a couple of clubs to whack a bar with, because he must have had a nice personality even when he was young. Because my father, sounds a bit daft to say about your father, but he was a nice man. He had a good sense of humour. He was in the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders in the First World War, got shot twice. They patched him up and sent him back in. 2 of his brothers died in the First World War. So, although he was a gentle man with a good sense of humour, you didn't mess about with him. He would, he could look after himself. But anyway, he went away, age 17, joined up, went in the First World War, came out, 4 years, he came out, he was 21 years old. And this is where, on reflections of all the things that have happened to me, a rather, in my opinion, strange thing happened. He came out from serving in the Argylls and talked, obviously, I suppose, to his brothers, what am I going to do? I really don't want to go into a business of gardening and that sort of thing. So I said, well, why don't you sort of see what you can do in the way of playing cricket? But also at that time, he'd seen an advert, so I'm told, in the magazine, golf magazines had just started then, for a job of an assistant golf professional down in Porthcawl in South Wales. And he wrote 2 letters, one to the Yorkshire Cricket Club and one to the pro, Jock Hutchinson, who was the professional at Royal Porthcawl. applying for the job. And as luck would happen, he got the letter back from the golf club first. And that's the only reason he went into the world of golf. Now, he went there, I can only assume, knowing nothing at all about the business. He couldn't have played very much golf. He certainly didn't serve any apprenticeships. Getting into professional golf today is quite difficult. You've got the players. It's easier to get in if you're a good player, or if you have a good amateur record, you move straight in. But to become a club professional, it's quite a long, drawn-out affair. You've got to fill many, many characters in the game of golf. And there he was. He went down to South Wales, and within a year he'd won the... How the hell all this happened, I don't know. He won the Welsh Championship, got a reputation for being a good teacher, ventured over into England, won a few bits and pieces, and his life in the world of golf took off. Spent 5 years in Germany teaching in Wannsee, where I was born, and things just grew and grew and grew. And I have always been, golf has always been there for me. Always enjoyed it and never thought about doing anything else. I've never been on a horse. I can't swim. I'm a typical Piscean. You know, those fishes go like that. I'm buggered if I know which way I'm going, but, you know, we're doing something. But life has been really quite good to me. I've been very lucky with my wife, and my wives really, although the first one was a bit dodgy, but the second one's been an absolute revelation to me. 43 years of it, and we're still there. A bloody miracle. But it has been a very interesting time. And looking back at my school days, I remember my last school report. I was 15 years of age. I left school. Why? You might say somebody leaving school at 15 today, I think it's illegal. But I'd played in the Boys' Championship in Edinburgh, 1946. And I was going home with my father, who'd accompanied me, and he tapped me on the knee on the train going back home. And he said, you know, there really was no further education then. You either went to, if you were bright enough, not had any money, if you were bright enough, you went to one of about 8 universities that were there then. He said, I don't think it's any point in you going further with education. You're not going to be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, or anything like that. But you might play golf. You might just, if you put your mind to it, you could become a good player, and if you look after yourself and don't be too stupid, if you play well and win a few bits and pieces, you can apply for a better job, and you'll always be all right, because there are clubs, still to this day a few, who have clubhouses where the professional lives, and you don't have any assets, but at least you're undercover, and you get a grub from the steward every day, so you can keep body and soul together. So it was okay. He said, you can join me as my unpaid assistant. Well, he was a Yorkshireman, and he'd been in the Argylls for 4 years, so he's a canny fella, and so it was. And I think back to my last school report. It was a modest school, a nice school, a gentle school on the outskirts of Bournemouth, and it was run by a couple called Weymouth. Mr. Weymouth was a sort of behind-the-scenes man, but his wife, Mrs. Violet Weymouth, who ran the school. She was a short Welsh woman, a little rotund woman, and I swear she used to put her lipstick on in the dark with her eyes shut, because it used to go all right like that. And I used to look at her, and I thought, I'd like the concession for the lipstick you use here. But she was wonderful, and the thought of anybody being cheeky to her, as they say children are today, or using bad language, is just ridiculous, totally ridiculous to think that. But this last report came when Father said there's no point in you going on and doing anymore. You could get into golf. And I remember it very clearly. On the Crosby House was the name of the school. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Alliss, your son Peter does have a brain, although he keeps it pretty well concealed. There only seems to be 2 things he's interested in: Iris Baker and the game of golf. Neither of these will bring him any good fortune, but we, my husband and I, wish him all success in the future. That was Mrs. Weymouth's appraisal of me in 1947. And as the years have flipped by, I often think about her, and I think about where I've been and feel the bits and pieces I've done. I was privileged to win this Open Championship and 3 or 4 other Open Championships, not our Open Championship, unfortunately. But it's been a very, very good life, and it's moments like this in the sort of twilight of my golfing years, and my life, I suppose, to get an award like this in front of you charming people. And I think if Mum and Dad are up there looking down, which who knows they may be, I'd say, well, Mum, Dad, not done too badly, really, have we, for someone who left school at 15. And if Mrs. Weymouth happens to be there as well, bollocks. Good night.